All right, welcome back to the Real Estate Play-by-Play.
So when you go to a game these days, it's like the entire experience. So I have to tell you, you go to a basketball game, a football game, a soccer game, there's a halftime show, there's shows during timeouts. They're trying to constantly entertain you. Yeah. And, they're announcing the teams. There's lights, there's fireworks, there's dancers.
The food, the snacks, all the stuff.
It's everything you feel, right? When you walk into that stadium or that arena, it's that feeling that you get that
you're there for fun.
Yeah. And it's the same way with real estate. When I'm selling a house and the buyer is walking into the property, I want them to be drawn in.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And there are those houses that you just see it when you're looking online and you see the photos and you just can immediately picture your family running through the house. You can picture your Christmas tree up at Christmas time.
And one of the main ways that a buyer can feel like this is their house and showing the space off is by staging.
Right. Yeah.
And this comes up a lot. Like staging is a topic that comes up a lot when I'm talking to sellers and what we can do to sell their house for top price.
Yeah. And there was a lot more to it than I originally thought. I mean, on the mortgage side, obviously, we don't really have any involvement in this process. So I'm excited to learn too. But yeah, I mean, tell me more, Christy, tell me more.
Yeah.
So you're selling your house. How does this work? Who sets all this up?
Right. So a realtor definitely helps a stager when it comes to staging the property. However, it's better to get a specialized stager to help stage the property. And a client will ask, well, how do I know who to get? Your realtor should be able to recommend to you one, if not two or three different stagers that would work best for your property. And depending on your property, it's going to depend on what stager works best. There are certain stagers that will work on more high-end properties and charge a little bit more. But then there's other stagers that will work on, maybe it's just a condo and it's a small space and you don't want to spend a lot of money. Right. And there also comes down to, do you do a full stage versus a partial stage?
Yeah.
A lot of people don't even know what a partial stage is.
I don't know what a partial stage is. But now, are we talking for houses that are vacant, right?
Yeah.
That's where this comes in?
And that's another question. So technically you can stage a house that has the owner still living in it. Although it gets a little bit more technical. There's only certain stagers that will do it. It depends on what rooms you're staging. If you have animals versus no animals. If you have kids versus no kids. So our houses probably would never be able to be staged with all our kids and animals.
It's out. Yeah. It'd be great though. If somebody wants to put it all together for me, that'd be awesome.
And so basically, typically what happens is the stager will come into the property with your realtor and the owner there, and they go room to room and they take a look at, this is kind of how we would stage it. They give you a price and then you can go back and decide if you want them to stage it. So sometimes it benefits the sellers to get a couple different staging prices if they're being budget conscious.
Right. Yeah. Right. And then we're talking furniture? Are we talking pictures on the wall? Do we have to? So if we're there, does all of our own stuff have to come out first?
Right.
How does this work?
If you're going to stay there, a lot of times what happens is you're only staging some of the rooms where we can take out all the furniture.
Got it.
Or maybe you have a minimalist person that lives there, doesn't have a lot of furniture and essential little trinkets, knickknacks, things to make the house look better. And then a stager could come in and add some stuff to it. Ideally, if the house is vacant is when you're going to stage and you're going to do either the partial or the stage. And that means the stager comes in, they put furniture throughout the whole house. They'll put artwork up on the walls. They even stage the front of the house and the yard space as well. So if you want a cute table in the backyard, some chairs, a couch, make the space really inviting and comfortable, they will do that as well.
Yeah. I mean, I've noticed such a huge difference when I'm looking at different properties, in just the way you feel when you look at different listings, right? There's a noticeable difference between a vacant, empty, plain, white, boring house than one that automatically feels like you can picture your family there.
I mean, staging makes a huge difference. It's definitely a return on your investment that you will get no matter what. I can say that with 100% certainties. There are a lot of buyers out there that can walk into a house and cannot visualize where a couch should go in the family room or where certain furniture should go, especially if it's an awkward space.
Right.
And plus, it just feels cozy. It feels warm. It feels like you want to live there, right?
Yeah.
So it makes it really easy for the buyer to envision living there. And also, besides, the staging part, there's other little small things here or there that we can recommend as a realtor to do that works alongside the stager to make the house more inviting. For example, just painting the house is a huge difference, along with changing out the light fixtures. We do that all the time.
Yeah, that one really surprised me. I guess I'm less picky than maybe some, but I never really even considered that. That's a pretty inexpensive update to do, right?
Yeah, I just had a trust sale where the house was all original, and we literally went in and we painted the entire interior of the house. We put new flooring, carpet throughout the whole house.
Yeah.
And then we changed out a couple of the light fixtures, one being the main one over the dining room table. And, we're not talking about getting anything really expensive. I can show you a few on Amazon that are like, here, get this one. It works for this space. It's maybe $100, $150. It costs next to nothing to get it installed. Sometimes the painters could even do it.
Yeah.
And it makes a huge difference. Even though the kitchen's not updated, the bathroom's not updated, just painting it out white and putting some black fixtures in to accent it makes it look like vibrant again. It really attracts more of those millennials. That is really a huge percentage of the buyers right now.
Huge. When you look at the population data, it's really the main segment of the industry. Now, it sounds like you're pretty confident in the fact that paying for staging will be recaptured in purchase price. Is that generally what you find? Like the cost of, obviously that's always the goal, right? If you're selling the house, you want to put money in that you will get back.
Correct. So you will definitely get that money back and then some for sure. I think if somebody is more budget conscious, then you can do a partial stage versus a full stage. And a partial stage means that they're going to stage just the main living space areas and the master bedroom. So for example, if you do a partial stage on a 4-bedroom, 2-bath home, they're going to stage the family room, the living room, the kitchen, and then they're going to stage the master bedroom and the master bath. I should say primary bedroom.
Yes.
Yeah. To be PC on this podcast. So in a full stage, they're staging that entire house. So they're staging the 4 bedrooms and the 2 baths, the kitchen, the family room, and the living room, all the living space area. Now the outside is kind of, if you want to do it or if you don't, it's going to be an added cost. Not usually very much.
Right.
But you can get the same. So a question that I get from the sellers is, if I only partially stage, am I still going to see a return on my investment with money?
Right.
And yes, you are. And I'll tell you why. Because a lot of the reasons we stage is for marketing purposes, to have really good pictures, to have really good videos. And the main areas that we're taking pictures of are the living space area and the primary bedroom and bath.
Right.
So you're getting those really good shots of the main areas. And then those are the ones that the buyers are seeing first, whether it's on the flyer or the internet or a commercial.
Right.
That's the marketing that they're seeing first. So you can get the same amount of what you're trying
Impact.
to accomplish
Yeah.
with a partial stage versus a full stage.
Okay. And so what happens, right? So you go through the staging process. Essentially, you're renting furniture and furnishings, right?
Sure.
Is that done for a certain time period? Like what happens if your house sits on the market? I know yours don't, but I'm sure you know the answer. I'm sure you know the answer because you've talked to some other agent who had this happen once. But what happens if your house doesn't sell? Like, how does this work?
Right. So a staging contract is typically for 60 days. So for 2 months. After that, if you need to have the staging in there longer, they will charge you for that additional month. And then you could kind of go off there. At that point, it's really a conversation that you should have with your realtor, whether you keep the staging and pay for more. There's pros and cons, right? So keeping it another month if it's not that much money. And if you're having a lot of interest, it'd probably be worth it. If you're in escrow, but the appraiser hasn't come out yet to see the property and it's in that good light with the furniture, maybe you can negotiate something where you just keep it for half the time for 2 weeks. Sometimes if you've had the staging in there for let's say 3 or 4 months, removing it and getting a different perspective on the property, just being vacant, is not a bad idea at that point. So there's definitely different strategies that you can look at, but all these conversations need to be had with your realtor and also your stager. And also another conversation that should be had with your realtor and your stager is how you stage the property, because that's really important too. So for example, when a stager comes into a property that I'm going to list, I'm giving them the information. It's not their job to know who's going to buy this property. Right? It's my job to say, hey, listen, this is a really kid-friendly neighborhood and we have 4 bedrooms here. So we need to fill these bedrooms with younger kids, furniture. It needs to look like a family is going to move into this house. Whereas opposed to maybe it's a 2-bedroom condo in a 55 plus community. Don't need to have a kid's bedroom in there. Don't need a bunk
bedroom
beds.
in there. Yeah. Got it.
It's going to make more sense that it's a primary bedroom and maybe an office.
Right.
So the realtor is really working hand in hand with the stager to give them the information to make their staging appeal the best to the buyers and their ability.
Right. And it sounds like this kind of all goes hand in hand with professional photos and the minor upgrades and things like that ahead of time. I assume that all of these discussions are being had before you list the house, staging's going in before it even hits the market.
Yep, exactly. So usually staging goes in, you want to maximize you sign a contract for 2 months. You want to maximize the time that you have the furniture and on the market. So usually we'll stage it, take pictures the next day and put the house on the market within 2 or 3 days so that you still have a lot of time to be on the MLS with the furniture in the property. But yeah, everything is done before it's put on the market. Other things to look for is if you have a view property, making sure that it's staged correctly to show off the view. So for example, if you have a client that has a big picturesque window and they have a couch in the middle of it, not going to do the best for the view, right? It's not going to show the house off to its full potential. A stager will come in and make sure that the couches are faced in a certain way that it incorporates the view as well as the fireplace. And sometimes that gets a little tricky.
Truthfully, as you said that, I bought our house. I was not intending to buy a house, but a friend who's a real estate agent had a listing and it showed the patio with the view. And I fell in love with the idea of sitting on the back deck in front of the fire pit, which we have never done once. But the idea of it really drew me into the property and convinced me to buy a house I wasn't even looking for.
It's so crazy. It actually is so crazy how staging can do that. And then, we literally built a wall in our backyard for an area for a fire pit and to sit out there. And not once, you guys have. Who has time? I want to know who has time.
I don't know who's sitting around on fire pits, but
drinks or fire pit.
I own the fire pit. It's sitting there. It's something to sweep around, but it has not gotten used. But I love the idea that maybe someday I'll have time to roast marshmallows looking at the view.
Exactly.
Maybe someday.
And that's what staging does, right? So for example, you bring that up. It's funny. So I had one property that was balconies and overlooking a gorgeous view. And they had a ton of different birds that came by. Bird watching was really big. So we put binoculars out there with a bird book and a little note that talks about, what type of birds they have there. Because that's a thing. A buyer comes to a property and they want to be a part of nature. And it shows, oh, look, you can do bird watching out on this deck off the primary bedroom. That's a huge selling feature.
It's really, it surprises me sometimes, right? I grew up, my dad was a contractor, so we kind of were always doing remodel, fix it projects. So I'm generally pretty good at seeing a space and being able to see past it. And being able to see what it could be. And I kind of even like that. But it really surprises me. There are so many people who just don't think that way, right? They need to be able to walk into the space and see it for its best potential right off the bat.
And I've actually, to that point, I've actually had clients that I've shown them the property early, because a lot of times the top agent, you're involved in these top agent groups, and we do a lot of off-market properties.
Yeah.
And so we're able to show clients the properties before it's market ready. And so I've had situations where I've showed the buyer the property before it's market ready, and they're not interested in it because it doesn't show well. It's not painted. There's a lot of clutter. And then I show them the property when it comes on the market and it's been decluttered and it's painted and it's staged, and you walk in, it smells like freshly baked cookies. And they're like, I love this house.
Isn't it amazing?
Buyers cannot a lot of the time see past
the other people's messes and all that stuff. Yeah.
And everyone lives differently, let me tell you.
Right. Yeah. I bet you see all kinds of things. Yeah. That's awesome. It's that's good. What do you think about virtual staging? I've kind of heard of that as a thing. Is that becoming more popular with AI?
So that's an interesting topic. My experience with virtual staging has not been wonderful. I'm not going to lie. What happens is the buyer looks online. So virtual staging, just so people know, is they take a property, whether it's vacant or not vacant, and they put the staging furniture in the room. So they keep the walls and everything, but then it looks completely redone.
Right.
Those are the pictures that go on the MLS. I think you can use virtual staging to your advantage in certain situations, but taking a house that maybe doesn't look great or is completely vacant and doesn't look great, and you put the virtual staging online, gets the buyers through the door.
Yeah.
But the problem is once the buyers get in the door, they're kind of duped. They feel
like
duped.
They've been ripped off.
Yes.
Yeah.
I've had buyers be like,
wait,
what? And then they can't wrap their head around it. They can't really see it because visually they were looking at online and now it's in person. I've seen agents even put the virtual staging pictures on a poster board so that when they walk in, they see it in different rooms. It's not getting the full effect. So I don't love it. I'd rather just spend less money and do a partial stage, and get the full effect. Now, where virtual staging can come into play, I've had a situation where a master bathroom in this gorgeous house, it was a higher price point, but the only thing with the house is the primary bathroom was not very big. Yeah. And so what we did is we did a virtual stage in there and showed how you can push out a wall and make it bigger.
That's
and
cool.
then we put the pictures up in the bathroom.
Okay. Kind of give the possibilities.
Yeah. So with a amount that it would cost to make the bathroom like that.
Right. Okay. I like that.
So the sellers didn't want to redo their whole primary bathroom.
Yeah. Makes sense.
But here's showing the buyers, here's what it would look like and here's what it would cost if you want to do it, if that's holding you back from buying the house.
That's great. So kind of uncovering, the potential objections of the property and solving it for them.
Yeah. And same type of thing during COVID, pools were really popular. People wanted to have a pool in their backyard, whereas before pools would add 30% to the value. During COVID, having a pool in your property would make it go up like 70%.
Wow.
So what we would do is you can show a backyard where a pool can go. You can virtually stage a pool in the backyard to show, hey, this is what your backyard would look like if you want a pool. So in those types of situations, you can really help the value of the house by doing that.
Yeah. That's cool. This is a huge topic. It's so much more to it than I really realized, but very interesting.
Yeah. So just getting the whole experience, wanting to feel like when you go to a game that it's exciting and that it's inviting and that it's part of the energy of
and
it.
The cotton candy and all everything. The stuff, the big fingers and all that fun stuff.
Buyers walk into a house. It's an experience. You want them to feel invited and comfortable and like this can be their house. It's so important.
Yeah. They want to feel like they're home.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome.
The whole experience.
The whole experience.
Real estate play-by-play.
Cheers.
Cheers.